Hey guys, I got another chess video for you. This is a game I played on Yahoo against Pete Teach. His rating was approximately 1364. And I'm just going to go ahead and just go through this game. I thought that the ending was fairly interesting because I won because of a rook skewer. And if you guys like watching my videos, so far all I've been doing is I've been showing the whole entire game and just giving a little bit of analysis because I haven't been able to get a bunch of information down into the 10-minute YouTube time span yet. But if you guys want to send me any comments, just say if you prefer for me to spend a lot of time on just like one aspect of the game, like the opening, the middle, or the end game, then I'll definitely do that. But until then, I'm just going to show the entire game and just give my 2 cents on the matter and blow through it. So I went off and started with f4, bird's opening. He decided to go to b6 to fianchetto his bishop. I went knight to f3, he fianchettoed, and then I went e3. I went e3 because his bishop is threatening to take the knight, and then I'm going to have to take back with one of the pawns, messing up my kingside pawn structure. So I went to e3, so if he took on f3, I could take back with the queen. He played a developing move, knight to f6. I played my knight to c3, also a developing move. He played e6, preparing for d5, and I decided to fianchetto my own bishop on the dark squares. He played d5. I jumped my knight into e5. He can't simply play a pawn to kick my knight, so this is a fairly annoying place for me to put my knight for him, so he has to deal with it, and he brought his knight to d7. I fianchettoed my bishop. He took my knight. I took back with the pawn, and now he has this threat on his knight. He moved his knight, attacking my pawn. I protected my pawn by playing d4. He brought his pawn out to c5. I went my knight to b5 to potentially go to this square, d6, which is protected by my pawn. This square forks the king and the bishop, and if I want, I can jump in there, and if he takes back with the bishop, I can trade my bishop for his, I can trade my knight for his bishop, or if the bishop moves away, I can just fork the king and the bishop, winning the bishop. He took on d4. I took back with my queen. He brought in his bishop to kick my queen. I went my queen to f4 because none of his pieces are on this side of the board. All of his pieces are on the queen side. So I wanted to put my queen on the king side and advance my pawns to get something going on the king side over here. He brought his queen to e7, and that allowed me to fork his king and his rook, winning the rook for my knight. He took back with his bishop, and then I castled queen side so I can get my rooks going on the queen side. I castled queen side to get my rooks going on the king side because he still doesn't have anything going on over there. He wanted to trade bishops, and I said fine because my bishop is blocked in by my own e5 pawn. And when his queen takes, his queen's not doing much trouble because I can move my king to b1, and without any other supporting pieces, the queen isn't doing anything. And now my queen is attacking on his weak f7 square. He brings his queen back, protecting that square. I push h4 to get my pawns going. He blocks the advancement of my pawn by going to h5. I developed my bishop. He brought his knight out, attacking my bishop. I moved my rook to f1, threatening to trade the queens, or just straight up win this f7 pawn, because if I take, he can always move his queen away. But if he wants to take, I can always take back with my rook, and I win a queen and a pawn for my queen. He blocked with his rook, and I like having 2 rooks against a single rook in an endgame, so I wanted to trade the queens off and see how the endgame would go. He blocked with his f6 pawn, so I took the pawn, and when he took back, I gained a pawn by taking on h5. Then he was going to push his pawns and threaten to get something going on the king side, attacking my king. the queen side, attacking my king. Sorry about that. That's the second time I said that. So I blocked the advancement of his a pawn by playing a4. He brought his bishop to c6, and I was going to go to b5, offering to get the bishops off the board. He accepted. I took back with my pawn. And then this is the best move I think that he played in the game. This move threatens knight to g3, which forks my queen and my rook. And it also threatens knight to c3, forking my king and my rook. So he can easily get back the rook-knight exchange, which I got earlier on in the game. So I moved my king to b2, and he brought his queen into b4. And I think that he really should have went knight to g3, winning the rook on f1 for his knight in this case, because then it would have made the material much more even. He would have been down just a pawn, and it would have been a fairly equal game. I think my opponent tried to see an attack with his knight and queen on my king side, and it didn't. I didn't think that it was a strong enough attack to sacrifice this exchange by playing queen to b4. So that's what he did anyways. So I went rook to d3, protecting the c3 square, because he can give me a check on c3 with his queen, which is protected by the knight. So I stopped that by playing rook to d3. He moved in his pawn to a4, threatening to push to a3 or take on b3 possibly. And then I moved in my rook because I saw a tactic in the very, very back ranks. His king is not castled. It's still in the center of the back ranks. And if his pawn takes, then I can simply give him a check on the back. He would have to move to protect his rook. I would give him a check with my queen. If he decided to block the rook, I would check him with my rook, forcing the king to move to d6, and I win the rook. So that's what I was threatening. But instead, he played knight to c5, which has 3 attackers on this b3 pawn, and his knight is also attacking my rook. And I decided to give his queen a check, hopefully moving his queen, and if not, then I can always double my rooks on the a file by playing the d rook to a4. He moved his queen, and instead of taking with the d rook, I took with the a rook, because after his knight takes, there's going to only be one rook left, and it looks like I sacrificed my rook and only gained a knight. But now the queen has nowhere to move. It has to move only into this diagonal, or take the pawn on b5, I'm sorry. Because if he goes back here, then I'm just simply going to take it. So he can only go to take the pawn on b5 or move down this diagonal, which allows me to give the king a check and do exactly what I told you guys earlier. And now I have 5 pawns against his 4 pawns, and I'm a whole rook up. So I'm just going to get the queens off the board and win this game. I gave him a check. He moved his king to e5, the only possible square. I pushed the pawn, and then I gave a check on c7, swapping the queens. He's forced to take with the queen, or else he loses the queen for nothing. And then I just pretty much just finished out the game. He took, threatening to queen this pawn, but I saw that after this whole queen swap and him taking, my king is going to be just fast enough to go ahead and stop that pawn. So he brings in his king to stop it. And his king cannot simply go to d3 or f3 because they are both guarded by my pawns. And I saw this, and this is what allowed me to come in and stop this pawn. He moved f4, I moved in, and I'm just going to play this real quick. This isn't anything fancy or anything, it's just simple ending. I was just got the pawns off the board, advance my pawns, and this game is pretty much over. And this is when my opponent resigned.